So, USDA may actually ban canning at home. I'll get to that in a minute. But as you can see, I've canned some chicken, and I've used Tattler lids. Tattler lids are plastic lids that have two pieces on it. You have the white cap, and then you have a little gasket that goes in between the cap and the jar. And I like them a lot. They're reusable. Regular lids, they're pretty expensive when you really start breaking down the cost. A lot of people will reuse regular lids, but you're not supposed to. They're designed to fail the second time, as a matter of fact. That way you'll buy more. But Tattler lids, they'll last up to 10 years according to the back of the box, or up to 10 years, something like that. But on YouTube and Google, they always say 10 uses. Now, the cap is always good to use. It's the little O-ring that you have to buy. And you can buy a dozen of those for like, $9. It's not very much. Now, what's funny is maybe you can see that these over here are still boiling. Now, the reason they're boiling is because it's under a vacuum. And the more the vacuum, the lower the boiling point. So I can touch that. It may be 120 degrees. So it's still boiling, even at 120 degrees. What's worrisome, and I always worry about these, is the ones that don't come out boiling. Those bother me. I mean, I've never had, well, I mean, I've had some fail. Maybe one out of every batch is not sealed. But even metal lids will do that. You'll see metal lids boiling on some and others not. The difference is on the metal lids, you'll get that satisfying little pop. You know, they all pop. So then you know they've sealed when they've come out of the canner. But you can't tell with these plastic lids. There's just really no way to tell until you actually unscrew it. I kind of press on them and I feel like they should be sealing because there's no flex in it, but I don't know if that's a good test. So when these stop boiling, then I'll take the lids off. The rings, I'll take the rings off. That's when I'll know if these failed or not. Now I can recan them. It's not like it's a waste of food. I'll just get another lid and try again. There's 7 of them. My canner holds 10, so what I'll do to fill in the blanks is I have a bunch of broth here that I can fill in there on the 3 blanks. Carolyn uses broth for a lot of things. I mean, we don't use chicken noodle soup anymore because we're carnivore, so we don't eat noodles. No carbohydrates, or very little carbohydrates, I should say. I mean, we still get our once a week snack. We get pistachio nuts and ice cream on Fridays. So I can't say we're 100%, but I've never said we're 100%. We're about 80% carnivores, and it's been really wonderful. But that's a whole different story. I mean, I could go on and on about carnivore diet. I know that a lot of people are gonna say, oh no, you gotta have vegetables, you gotta have that. And, well, we've been doing it for a year, and I've never been healthier. So if this is how unhealthy feels, then I'm very happy with it. Much happier than I was when I was eating all this healthy food people tell me I need to eat. Now, if you want to see me canning food, I use metal lids, I use Tattler lids. Go over to my playlist. So you go to my channel and there's a bunch of tabs. They'll say video and community tab and I don't know, whatever. And then you'll click playlist. And so you click playlist and you run down all the playlists that I have available, and one of them will say canning. I mean, there's some that are about me building a tiny house and chickens, and if you get really old, it gets into when we were nomads and traveling the country. I have all kinds of different recipes in there: bacon, chicken, hamburger, and the Tattler lids. I've decided not to make videos about canning anymore because when I do, the videos don't do very well. My audience is primarily male. Apparently, when you're a man, you're not supposed to can food. I've told the story before. I canned some food one time, made a video about it. Somebody said, "You're a wussy." Of course, they took the W out and put a P in its place. Maybe I am, but I tell you what, I'll be the first one to survive if something goes wrong because I have this skill and I can do it like the back of my hand now. I've done it for years. I took a long hiatus from it, but I would say the last time I canned was 2010. And so last year I picked it back up, and it was like riding a bicycle. You get back on it, you know exactly what to do. Read the instructions. And that's the thing, you buy canners at Walmart now. We have a Presto canner. You buy them at Walmart, and the instructions have everything in that you need. How to can meat. One person in the comment section says, "I'm not brave enough to do meat." Well, if you're brave enough to do vegetables in a pressure canner like green beans, you're brave enough to do meat. And I think it's actually safer to do meat. I know the concept will be, I can't do it. But vegetables can have botulism on it. Meat can too, depending on where it's been. But botulism is on the ground. It's in the dirt. And so when you pressure can vegetables and you put vegetables under a vacuum, if you don't kill the botulism, botulism grows in a vacuum. So here we are putting our vegetables in a vacuum, and if you don't do it right, you'll get the botulism. Whereas meat usually doesn't have botulism. That's not to say it can't. It can have botulism. But I figure it's less serious with meat than it is with vegetables. Now, if you're doing acidic vegetables like tomatoes, you can water bath those. You don't need a pressure. You can get that up to boiling. But the pressure canner, what it does is it gets the temperature, don't quote me, it's in the book, but let's say 240 degrees or 230 degrees, whatever it is, versus 212 degrees, which is boiling. Again, don't quote me on those temperatures, but boiling can only get up to whatever it is, 212 degrees. You're getting the temperature up hot enough to kill the botulism. So I would rather have that skill. Now, a lot of people, again, will tell me, oh no, you can salt cure and you can dehydrate. You can do all these things and you don't have to go through all the effort of canning. Well, I've done them all. There's my dehydrator, my sun dehydrator right there. I've salt cured. I've got videos on salt curing, and none of them are long-term preservation methods. Canning is the one that you can do for long term. We salt cured, and it only kept the meat good for about 30 days, and it went rotten. And that was in the refrigerator. It went rotten. In order to salt cure, to get it where it just won't rot, you got to get all the moisture out of it. In order to get all the moisture out, you have to put that in a tub of salt. It has to sit in there. And by then, it's just so salty, who wants to eat it? You'd be eating salt, so it wouldn't even be good. Whereas canning makes the food good to eat, and it preserves. Now, the USDA says, or the FDA, I think it's USDA, says you can only store it for a year. And as a YouTuber, and as a responsible citizen, I am telling you, you should follow the USDA's recommendations. However, I keep my food much longer than that. Just like the expiration date on canned foods at the grocery store, they can go a lot longer than the expiration date. Now, they will say that the flavor decreases after a year, and that may be why they have the expiration date on it and why they say that canning food only lasts a year. But as you know, the government has got their hands in everything, just everything. And so if you want to live off grid, got their hands in everything. I told you several times now that the wood stove, speaking of which, it got down to 24 degrees last night. It's downright cold today. It was so cold that the cat came in. I carried her in, and she sat at the door for a second, and then she realized, wow, this is warm, and she ran underneath the bed. She'd been there almost all day. She just went outside. She wanted to go outside, I guess, to go to the bathroom. I can't see her right now, but she was cold this morning. So, but they, you know, the EPA is involved with regulating the wood stoves, wanting to ban the wood stoves. Municipalities have banned wood stoves. And you'll hear it in my comment section that these things need to be banned because it's a risk to your safety, my safety. So the people who approve of the EPA taking our freedoms away are the same ones that are saying that the government has to be responsible for my safety. Well, if you want the government responsible for your safety, that's fine. But the government doesn't need to be responsible for my safety. If I die, that's on me. Now, what these people will say is, oh no, taxpayers have to cover your medical expenses. Well, then let me live in here and die. I mean, if I get sick, I won't go to the hospital. And people say, oh, that's not true. You'll go to the hospital. But I don't understand that because I pay in. If I have insurance, then I pay into insurance. If I have medical care, whatever it is, I'm paying in. So how is it the taxpayers have to pay for me? It makes no sense. And if I get onto Social Security and Medicaid or Medicare, whatever that is, the federal funded one, I've paid into that. That's all mine. It's not taxpayers. People like to say that whatever decisions I make affect everybody else. Well, I try not to. I try to make all these decisions mine. Well, the same with canning. The USDA actually wrote the book that I told you, you know, the Presto. They wrote all those ingredients on how to can food because apparently Presto's not smart enough to actually show us how to do that. Now, granted, back in the, I don't know, whenever the USDA was formed, before then, people were getting botulism and it was making people sick. But once they figured out what was causing it, All they had to do was come out with a recipe book and put it in the canner. Why did the USDA have to get involved? And we pay billions of dollars for them to teach a few of us how to can. Not everybody wants to can. Yesterday, I was on a Facebook group and they were talking about Tadler lids. There are some people who like them. There are some people who don't. And if you don't like them, fine, go buy the metal lids. I personally don't think metal lids are cost effective, but I'm not going to argue with you. If you don't like them, fine. Well, here's the thing. It's plastic. These are plastic lids with a seal. The plastic that they use has been approved for use in food products by the USDA. So Tadler used that plastic that was approved by the USDA. But the people in the Facebook group say, well, it wasn't approved for Tadler. They didn't take the lid and test it to make sure it was safe to use as a canning device. You can use it for the other devices that the USDA has approved it for, but not for canning. They have to do it individually. If it's been approved for use, then what difference does it make if it was approved for canning? This is why our government has gotten so bloated. And this is why we keep losing so many freedoms, is because people on Facebook think that they need to protect me. This woman is saying I would never use Tadler, and I want to start a petition, or she was going to start a petition to get the USDA to ban Tadler lids because it might harm me, because I'm not smart enough to realize that Tadler's using a plastic that wasn't specified as a use for this plastic. But it doesn't matter. If it's being used in other applications, high temperature applications, then it doesn't matter to me. And it's like certain medications. Medications that have been around for decades. We're fine to use all those decades, but then all of a sudden, in the last few years, all of a sudden, the FDA were supposed to approve it for every individual use. That means that doctors were no longer allowed to make decisions for their patients. The government is now making decisions. You can use it for this specified reason, but not for this specified reason, even though it's been used this way for decades. So I would suspect that Tadler lids will be restricted at some point, simply because of some guy in his basement trying to make a living on a neat little product that is safe. I've heard of this rumbling for a long time that people want to have the USDA involved in the approval of these lids. And it's never going to get approved because Tadler is not a big company. It's a real small company. Ball, who makes the canning lids, will say, no, we don't want Tadler taking away our business. Government will say, oh no, we can't use Tadler. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to the video where I was talking about those wood stoves. So I hope I can inspire you to start canning so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.